Hello and welcome to Round Robin. I'm your host, Robin McCormick with the Hampton City Communications and Marketing Department. And today we're going to offer you some tips on how to keep your money safe and how to spot a scam and how to avoid them. My guest today is Heidi Lewis. Welcome, Heidi.
Thanks for having me back, Robin.
Yeah, and Heidi's the manager of the Hampton City Employees Credit Union. And the last time you were here, we talked about some things and then got this idea that maybe we should look at ways people can protect themselves, because you, in your position, see people who have been a victim of some of these scams, or maybe even catch it on the front end before it goes too far.
Absolutely. It's very unfortunate in this day and time that so many people are the victim of scams or the attempted victim of scams. And we try to be really vigilant to keep an eye out to spot things that are happening currently on scams. And we have unfortunately seen members of our credit union be victimized by scams.
You know, it's funny. You hear about this maybe even on the news and you think, how would someone fall for that?
Well, an example of that, and again, one of our local TV stations had a news program on just last night about a scam. Somebody had posted something for sale on the internet, received communication from somebody who sent them a check for a lot more money than the item that they were selling. So asked them to send them the item and send them back the difference, wire them back the difference in cash. And that's a real common scam. You'll see that quite often. I've had members bring in checks. Here's a cashier's check. They're buying my car over the internet. They want me to ship them my car and pay for the shipping with the difference in the check.
Oh.
And what they've sent
you. So that sounds logical. You can kind of think, oh, well, they didn't know how much the shipping would be, so they wrote a big check. Okay.
What they've sent them is a counterfeit cashier's check.
Because you think cashier's check, that's safe. That's not a personal check. But it was.
But that's the prevalent fraud ongoing now. Counterfeit cashier's checks. Because we get a lot of members and it's like, well, how come banks look at me funny if I bring them a cashier's check? Banks, credit unions, that's the major area of fraud that we see. And in this day and time, with laser printers and the technology we have, it is so easy for the bad guys to produce a counterfeit cashier's check. And they look wonderful. They really do. And
so
really,
an individual probably couldn't spot the difference.
An individual might not be able to spot the difference, absolutely. If you're not used to looking at them. Well, you know, a lot of times they look really, really good. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they're actually printed on real laser check stock as well. So what we end up doing, if we're suspicious about an item, is to call the financial institution. You can look them up on the internet. Or you can, try to check the financial institution. Quite often, the name of the institution is real. The routing number on those checks is real.
They've stolen that from somewhere else.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Taken a copy of a real, actual cashier's check or a teller check. But, take your time. I think the problem that we're seeing, or one of the things that we're seeing, is that people are preying on folks' desire to earn some money, make some money. Oh. And that's where we're seeing one of the main problems. But contact the financial institution that those items are drawn on. See if that is a valid check. And most often than not, they're not. One of the main problems too is that under current banking and laws, check holds are very short in this day and time. We can only put a hold on a check for a couple of days.
Now, what does that mean?
So if you bring a check into your financial institution, they can place a hold on that item for a day or two to say, you can't have access to these funds until 2 days from today, or 1 day from today. Then you can come in and get the cash for that item. However, it can take up to a couple of weeks for that item to be presented for payment through the banking system, and for the institution where you deposited the item to get notification that this check's no good.
So people have spent that money.
People have spent that money. People have turned around and wired that money off to the bad guys, and then they're responsible to their financial institution for payment of that item.
So they have to pay back.
They have to pay the credit union or the bank back for that item. And quite often they don't have a lot of money. So we try to be really vigilant in spotting those items, but unfortunately, that you can't always rely on your bank or credit union to do that. So you really, really do need to be vigilant.
So really check on a cashier's check from someone you don't know.
Absolutely.
And also, if anyone is asking, any stranger or person you're doing business with is asking you to wire money, that's kind of a red flag right there.
Yeah, and if when I was doing my research for this talk, that's the most prevalent thing, is money wiring scams are rampant. The Federal Trade Commission has wonderful information that you can look up on their website about this, but money wiring scams are the biggest way to lose your money. You will not ever see it again. And when I talk about money wiring scams, I mean scams through MoneyGram or Western Union. You take them cash, it is wired away. You will never
It's gone.
see
That's
it
a
again.
permanent transaction.
That is
it's
a
not
permanent
like a credit
transaction.
card where, if something happens, the credit card institution will,
Absolutely.
take care of that issue.
Absolutely. And there are so many different scams that are prevalent in this day and time. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of the lottery scam.
No, I haven't heard of that one.
Where people will get a letter saying, you've won the Canadian lottery, and here's the cashier's check for part of your winnings. We need you to cash that check and turn around and send us your taxes and fees. And that's
because it's a foreign government. The idea is you owe those.
You have to pay taxes and fees, and you'll get the rest of your earnings. So
don't you say, I've never played the Canadian lottery?
Yes,
I've
that's
never
what
been
you
to
should
Canada.
say.
Okay.
That's what you should say.
But instead you think, oh, wow, money.
Wow,
I
money.
need money.
I need money. And you take that check to your financial institution, deposit it, get the money, wire away your taxes and fees, and then in a few days you get a call from your bank saying you deposited a counterfeit check. And your money that you wired away is gone forever.
Oh, wow.
So, but there are a lot of these scams too where they're asking you to turn around and send them money. And there's so many different ways. There's the relationship scam that we're seeing. People will set up a false identity on one of the dating sites, and people will meet somebody online and they will form a relationship with them, and then I'm traveling to Nigeria to do mission work, and then I'm trapped in Nigeria and I need you to wire me money for a plane ticket to get back home, or things of that nature.
Or a plane ticket to come visit or whatever.
So do your due diligence, do your research
I
on
hadn't
people.
heard of that. But now the
one's
grandparent one, I can see people getting snagged by that. Tell us what that is.
You'll get a phone call in the middle of the night from somebody who claims to be your relative or your grandchild. I'm in jail and you can't call and tell my mom, and I don't want anybody to find out about this, and can you wire the money so I can get out of jail? And somebody will be calling you.
Somebody was traveling in Europe, and the kid was actually traveling in Europe, and so the grandparent gets the call that something has happened. All their money's been stolen, their ID's been stolen, and they know enough information to know the name of the grandkid and that he or she is traveling. I mean, that's a little scary.
It is very scary.
You're sleepy, you answer the phone in the middle of the night, it's the right gender, voice is creaky.
Exactly. And we've seen that happen. As a matter of fact, too, I was speaking to somebody at our Virginia Credit Union League, and one of the employees there, her elderly mother, she checks in with her every morning. I said, how are you today? Well, I'm getting dressed. I have to go out of the bank to get money out to get you out of jail, but why are you calling me? And they went to their house to explain to them that this isn't what happened. And the scammer actually called back.
Wow.
While
that's
they were
nervy.
there. They are very nervy. And quite often, too, one of the things that law enforcement will say is that a lot of these, they call them boiler rooms, a lot of these telephone scam operators are operating quite often out of Canada. There can be up to 1,000 of them operating at any given time doing multiple different scams.
Oh, wow.
And they will continue to work these people if you get people on the telephone. They quite often prey on people who may be elderly. So but people of any age range are being subject to these scams.
So what do you look for other than anyone who says wire me money? Because I mean, you know, if they've got the name of your kid or your grandkid and you can't reach them to verify their safety, that's a scary thing.
It is a very scary thing. The thing that you have to do is take a moment, because one of the things that the scammers prey upon is a sense of urgency.
Okay.
They have answers to a lot of different questions. When you're talking to these people, they've done this before. They are professional scammers. One of the things you need to do is, I need a telephone number, I have to call you back. Find any way, shape, or form to get people off the telephone so you can stop, assess, and figure out exactly what's happening. Mm-hmm. If you get one of these relationship scam phone calls, regardless of them say, nobody can find out about this, you need to get off the phone and you need to call other people that you can trust and rely on in your family to say, this is what's happened, this is what the phone call I've got, you need to help me investigate this.
And people may be a little embarrassed to do that because they're a little embarrassed that they're doing an online dating service. I mean, there's just a whole lot of things that could play into that.
Yes, and exactly, and that's another reason they're taking...
that's why it works.
That's why it works, exactly. Another big one, too, is the mystery shopper one. We've seen a lot of that, and one of our members actually fell prey to this. They answered an advertisement in the local newspaper for a job as a mystery shopper. They were sent a cashier's check, and as part of their job as a mystery shopper, they had to cash that check, take it to Western Union, wire the money, because they were working as a mystery shopper for Western Union. And what it was a counterfeit check that they were subject to pay the entire amount back.
So the idea was that you're checking out Western Union and how you're treated, or you're supposed to fill out some sort of a survey or something, but
yes.
It really was just to get you to
and
wire
a lot
the
of
money.
too these money shopper scams are saying that we'll get you a great job as a lucrative income as a mystery shopper. People want to get a job, they want to make money, and they'll ask them to pay fees up front to get a job. Well, you know, any reputable employer is going to pay you for work. Mm-hmm. You don't pay them to get a job. Mm-hmm. So anybody asking you to give them money up front, the great likelihood is it's a scam.
But people are so desperate right now.
Absolutely, absolutely.
That they do have a greater likelihood of falling for that.
And you know, another thing that we've seen recently is not just counterfeit checks, but counterfeit postal money orders. And we had a member bring in counterfeit postal money orders. They had answered an advertisement online for a job, were supposedly being paid in these counterfeit money orders, and they looked good.
Wow.
I've been in financial institutions for over 25 years, and they could have fooled a lot of people. They actually even had the silver leaf on them that a U.S. postal money order will have. But something didn't feel right. We checked online. One of the things, if you ever receive a postal money order, look at the back of the item. On a U.S. postal money order, the red serial number printed on the front will actually bleed through to the back of the paper.
Oh, interesting. Mm-hmm. And that likely won't happen on a laser printer.
This was such a good fake that you could actually see a copy of the watermark on the back. A postal money order has a watermark of Benjamin Franklin. If you hold it up to the light, you can see Benjamin Franklin through the money order. You could see it on the front and the back, but when you really looked at it, you could see it was part of the copy.
Oh.
But so counterfeit postal money orders are a big one as well. People think it's a money order.
It's got to be good.
It's got to be good.
Mm-hmm.
So we've seen those quite a bit lately as well.
So there have always been scams. I mean, but it used to be maybe door to door or in person or outside the Walmart or something where people would ask for things. But technology really plays into this now in terms of making it easier to fool people.
It does, and one of the things that we're finding as a negative of that when there's publicity out is it's scaring a lot of people away from the internet who might normally be able to benefit from that. We see that a lot of times too with some of our older members. It's like all I hear about online is scams and bad things are going to happen to me if I go on the internet, and I'm afraid of somebody stealing my identity. So a lot of these scams are scaring folks away from things that could be a benefit to them.
Like online banking, for example.
Online banking is a big thing. They're afraid that somebody's going to be able to hack into their online banking, steal their identity. An important thing to remember is when you do anything online is to be very careful about where you're going and what sites you're going to. But for instance, if you go directly to your bank or your credit union's address, to their URL line, to access their system, there's not a good likelihood of somebody being able to scam that or hack into those sites, because there is so much security on most financial institution sites.
Right.
They have to have certain types of encryptions required by law, double layer of passwords, so those are sites that you're pretty well protected.
Okay.
An important thing to remember as well is if you're going online and using your credit card, your debit card to make purchases, don't give people your credit or your debit card number unless it is a merchant that you can verify.
Right.
That is a name that is recognizable. You're fairly safe if you're going to jcpenney.com or amazon.com or walmart.com. Big businesses that have security on their sites.
So it isn't just trusting the merchant you're doing business with, it is trusting the interface that people could potentially hack into to get that credit card number.
Exactly. But as vigilant as you are, it's very hard to protect yourself from certain types of theft. We've had a situation recently where a local merchant system has been hacked, and there's been quite a lot of debit and credit card fraud associated with that a lot of local institutions are having to deal with right now.
So what you mean there is, I go and eat out at a restaurant, I give them my credit card, they swipe it or do whatever they do with it, and it's not a problem with them necessarily, but someone who has equipment that has then captured that credit card information.
Unfortunately, it does happen.
Wow.
Merchants are working harder and harder to be vigilant to protect their systems, but occasionally there's malware on a computer system that gives bad guys access to it. Sometimes you really can't prevent these things from happening. The most important thing for people to do is to be very, very vigilant with their accounts. In this day and time, especially if you're using plastic card technology to live your daily lives, if you use your debit card regularly, if you use your credit card regularly, one of the things that you really need to do is take advantage of the services that your financial institutions offer to check your account frequently.
Okay.
Waiting for that statement to come in at the end of the month.
If it's a big enough flag, you'll get a phone call. I've gotten a phone call before when my number's been pirated, once, twice maybe.
And that's what we do as well. When we get fraud alerts on members' accounts that this could potentially be a bad transaction, we call our members.
Right. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes you're just traveling and having a lovely vacation and buying things you don't normally buy. But it's good that institutions have that alert system in place.
And another thing while we mention that is to let your financial institution or your credit card company know if you're going to be traveling, especially if you're leaving the country.
Now see, that never occurred to me. But it's a smart thing.
Well,
and I think, the truth is, I think I was in the Bahamas once and trying to use my ATM, and they were like, oh no, this is not going to work. And you're not supposed to be here.
A lot of fraud does originate from outside this country. So that's going to crank that up another level to your financial institutions' fraud alert systems to look at those items. So let them know if you're going to go out of the country. But to back up there, if you have it available to check your account more frequently, again, I know a lot of people who are uncomfortable about going and looking at their account online. See if your financial institution offers a telephone service where you can call and see what transactions have been posting to your account.
Okay.
Keep vigilant about keeping your checkbook or what your balance should be in your account, and if it's a difference, call and check. And it is hard for a lot of people to do. Now, if you do see, when you get a monthly statement, if you're not somebody who checks your account online, if you do see a transaction that you didn't authorize on your account, when you get your monthly statement, you are protected by law. The regulation that deals with electronic transactions allows you a certain number of days to notify your financial institution after you receive a physical statement.
So what you want to do is make sure you really open that statement and look at it. At the very least, if you're not balancing, if you're not checking in between, at least pull that paper statement and really go through it and look for things.
Because if you miss that 60-day period to notify your financial institution, you're out of luck. They don't have any recourse as far as removing those transactions from your account.
Okay.
So that's very important.
That's interesting. Well, any other tips? I mean, I think one of the things is the amount of personal information that's out there. I got a message through Facebook from a friend the other day, and it didn't look like a scam because it had my name in it. And so whatever that technology, and it said, you know, go in and look at these pictures, and I had to put my Facebook password in. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute, this doesn't look right. So I immediately changed my password, but it's just, you know, because they can be so personal now, because it can be, hey, Robin McCormick, it was great seeing you. Look at the pictures from, you know, the last time we were together. It seemed real. And it's like the grandparent thing too. It's if they know names, if they know where you are and where you live, it's much easier to not know, for the red flags not to go up.
It is, and it's hard not to do, especially with a situation that you talk about. I mean, everybody's probably opened an email that they shouldn't have opened.
Yeah, you don't know it until it's too late.
Clicked on a link they shouldn't have clicked on. One of the most obvious things that you can do if you're doing stuff online is to make sure you have really strong, up-to-date antivirus, anti-malware, spyware software.
And I know that you can get things that manage your passwords so that you don't use the same password I mean, I at least have a different one for my bank account, but it's hard to manage all that stuff.
It very much is. If you're having a hard time managing those two, or if you have a tendency to use the same passwords, one of the things you may want to do is write them down and have a secure area that you can lock up your passwords to. But as far as all the other identity theft and issues and things that are occurring in this day and time, one of the really important things to do is to step back and take your time when you're dealing with issues of that nature. As far as those scams, when people are asking you to send them money, you know, free is free. If you've won something, you shouldn't have to pay something. If somebody's purchasing something from you, they're not going to send you more money than you're asking for the item. So it's really stopping and assessing the situation. And if somebody is asking you to send them money, there's an emergency, we need it right away, that should set off every alarm bell and whistle that you have in your head. Take the time to check on things. Call other people, get other people's advice. And you know, too, when we talked the last time, I mentioned that it's really important to have a strong relationship with your financial institution. Try to build that kind of personal connection. If you have that, pick up the phone and call your financial institution. Say, hey, Heidi.
Much more likely if you feel comfortable.
Heidi, this is what is happening. Have you heard of anything like this before? Don't be embarrassed. Believe me, we've heard a lot worse stuff than anything you might potentially have to tell us. Ask questions, ask for help, stop, back up. So. And
I think one of the other tips is if you are being in a high pressure situation like that, you can, and you're finding it hard saying no, you can blame it on someone else. Oh, I'm sorry, my bank won't let me do this yet. Let me take, you know, they're going to make me take 24 hours, or, you know, I can't get to the bank, I need, you know, but find an excuse that is a little more palatable or a little more easier for you to get out.
And two, if you find out the person that you're talking to has an answer for everything that you come up with, that again is another red flag that should automatically set off warning bells.
They're a pro. They've done it before. They know all of the tricks.
They've ripped off a lot more people than you, so they do know all the tricks. It's very true.
Well, thank you for coming. Is there anything else I've forgotten to ask you about? This is a fascinating topic.
It is, and you know, it covers so many different areas, but again, be vigilant. Have a relationship with your financial institution. Have somebody that you can talk to or rely on for help.
Don't be afraid. Don't be shy.
Don't be afraid, and don't be embarrassed, because you are not the first person who's been the subject to something like this. You definitely won't be the last. But before you send anybody any money for anything, make sure that it's something that's valid.
Right, especially if you're wiring money or if it seems too good to be true. You might want to believe it, but it probably is too good to be true.
It's too good to be true, it probably is, yes.
All right, and watch your bank account in between paper statements if you can, and your credit accounts as well.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Heidi. I think
you.
those are good tips that everybody can follow. You know, it's easy to think, oh, I'm not going to get caught in a scam, but knowing how these people work is a good tip-off to help all of us protect ourselves.
Absolutely, and we hate to see anybody lose any money.
Gosh, nobody has money to give away, especially to
not.
scammers right now.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
well, thank you, Heidi.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you. I hope you'll follow these tips and keep your money safe in the future. Thank you.